Hey guys, today I'll be teaching you guys on how to make a leaderboard system in Roblox Studio. So now if I turn around, you should be seeing two leaderboards in my game. One is for the donations and the other one is for wins. And also in these leaderboards, the top three people usually get displayed on the top of the podiums as rigs right over here. And today, guys, I'll be teaching you guys on how to make this specific leaderboard system in Roblox Studio. And also, guys, this is my game, and I've made quite a lot of updates in my game, like changing the lobby, changing the banners, and yeah, I did change a lot of stuff in my game. So I encourage you guys to try my game out and see if this game is good or if there's any way that this game could be improved. All right, let's just get right into it. All right, guys, so in this video, I'll be replicating this exact same leaderboard model all the way from scratch. So now I'm just going to create a part and I'm going to anchor this part and I'm going to size it to 0.52, maybe one stud. And I'll also increase the height to 9 studs. I'm gonna make sure that is exactly the size of this specific part over here. All right, doesn't have to be exactly that size. It can just be around that size, around this leaderboard size. I'm just gonna keep it like this. And now I'm gonna Control D and I'm gonna duplicate this part, and I'm gonna put this exact same part at the top of this part. And this is gonna be the name of the leaderboard. This is where I'll be putting the name of the leaderboard, and this is gonna be the leaderboard list part. And here I'm gonna rename this part to list part, and I'll be renaming this part to heading part. All right, so now over here, I'm going to be adding a surface GUI because that is where, I mean, if you want to add text in a part, you would usually want to have an item called surface GUI that is right over here. And inside the surface GUI, I'll be adding a text label. And if you look around the part, you'll see a text label over here. And just going to rotate this part so that this label can be seen in the front. And I'm going to change the size of this text label to 1 comma 0 to comma 1 comma 0. And if you put the exact numbers like I did over here, you should see that the text label gets fully filled over here. And now I'm gonna go to text scale. Like there's a property called text scale, and if I tick it, you should see that the text has become much bigger. And guys, if you want the text to be even bigger, like let's say, like the size, like this is the size of the text, and it's, let's say your part is this big, but the text is really small. So how do you make it even bigger is that what you can do is you can go to Surface GUI, and you can search for pixels per stud, and you can reduce this number if you want the text to be even bigger. And yeah, right now it's way more bigger and better. But in this case, I'm simply going to put it at 50 and I'm going to put it at this exact size. So now in this text, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to put the text to most or maybe top 15 wins. And this is going to be a name. And now I'm going to change the material of these parts to glass, just like over here. So I'm going to go to material, marine, change the material to glass, which is right over here. And I'm going to change the transparency of this glass to 0.65 right over here. Okay, so now we don't really want to be able to see the background, so we're going to go to the text label and search for background transparency, and we're going to put this to 1 so that we won't really be able to see the background of the label. And also, we could also change the font of this text label to something like maybe Fracoda 1, because that's one of the best fonts in my opinion. Fracoda 1. And I can also add a UI. If you want to border add this text, you could add a UI stroke. And this UI stroke, you could change the color of the stroke to something like white. It really is your choice. And here you can also change the thickness if you want. I'm just simply going to put it like 3.8. Okay, so after creating the part, okay, so now we're gonna come to the list part. And this is where you guys might have to listen because this is the not so easy part. You gotta create the UI pretty carefully. Okay, so in the list part, I'm gonna add a surface GUI over here. And inside of the surface GUI, I'm going to be adding a text label over here. And as you can see, a text label is appearing at the back. So I'm simply going to rotate this part to the front. Okay, so now we're going to be having three columns in this leaderboard. One is the rank, the other is the name of the player, and the other column is for wins. So ideally, in this leaderboard, the rank column is quite small, the rank and the wins column is quite small. However, the player column is quite large, and we're going to create that exact same format over here, exact same sizing over here. So now if here we're going to go to size, and if you go to the text label, this is the ideal size. So we want to we want to change the units from offset to scale. Like right now, the unit is at offset, but we want to change it to scale. So here, we want the size to be around maybe 0.1. So on the x-axis, it's going to be 0.1 of the heights. And if I put 0.1 comma 0, and then in the y-axis, it's gonna be 1 comma 0. All right, my bad, guys. The x-axis actually has to be 1, because the x is the horizontal side, and the y-axis, it's gonna be 0.1. And yeah, as you can see, this is the ideal size we want. And guys, I think it's better if we create a frame under the Surface GUI instead of relying on text labels. So I'm going to add a frame here, and I'm going to change the size of this frame to the exact size of this text label, which is 1 comma 0 and 0.1 comma 0. So 1 comma 0 comma 0.1 comma 0. This basically means that 1 is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So in the x-axis, it's 1 because in the x-axis, the text label is fully filling up the space. However, in the y-axis, only 0.1 of the total height is being filled. Right over here, this is 0.1 of the full height. And that is what it basically means. So here inside this, I'm going to put this text label inside of this frame. And here, okay, so in this text labels, it's really small over here. As you can see, it is very, very small. So I'm going to change the size of this text label. Okay, so first we're going to create the rank text label. All right, so we're going to create the rank. And here it's approximately like 0.3 of the total width of this frame. So let's say this is the full frame, and we want the rank text label to be filled by 0.3 of this full frame. So in other words, the x value is going to be 0.3. Okay, so if I come over here and go to the size, I want to change the x-axis to 0.3 and the y, oh, okay, my bad, and the y to be exactly 1. So if I put enter, as you can see, the label is being created correctly at the specified place. So now I'm going to rename this text label to rank label. And I'm going to change some properties like text scale. I'm going to put that as true. And I'm going to change the text of this label to rank right over here. And you can also change the font if you want. I'm just going to put it bold. I'm not going to change the font because I think this doesn't look that bad. So just put it as bold. And now, okay, so we don't really want to be able to see the frame at the back. So we're going to go to the frame. Okay, before that, let me rename this frame to, maybe like heading frame. We rename it as heading frame right over here. And now I'm going to change the transparency of this heading frame to 1. And I'm also going to change the transparency of the rank label to 1, just like that. All right, so now we're going to create, okay, you know what? Maybe it's better if I put it like 0.5 because we'll change it to 1 later. All right, so you know what? Let's actually change this to 1 later. Actually want to show you guys how the scaling works. So let me change the background color to something like green over here in this case. And now we're going to create the player label that basically fills most of the space. So now over here in the surface GUI, inside the heading frame, I'm going to be adding another text label over here. And we'll rename this to player name heading. Heading. Okay, here let me put it as rank heading instead of label. And here I'm going to resize this text label, this player name heading label to, okay, so we probably want like maybe 0.4 of the total distance. So I'm going to put it like 0.4 comma 0 comma 1 comma 0. However, there is one small issue. As you can see, the label is right at the leftmost side, but we want this label to be right next to the rank label, and this label is kind of overlapping the rank heading label, and don't really want that. So in order to change that, we're going to change the position of the player name heading label as well. So if you go to position, you should be seeing it as 0 comma 0, right? So but we want to change it to something that's more in front of the rank label. So how to do that is that, okay, so let's go to the rank heading label first. Here you can see that the size is 0.3 in the x-axis. So in order to position this specific label correctly, we want to put the label that is in front of the rank heading by simply putting it as wait, let me come over here and go back to position. So here I should be putting 0.3. And if I put enter, as you can see that this label is going right next to rank. The reason why I'm putting 0.3 is because the size of the rank label, as you can see, the size is 0.3. So ideally, we want this label to be 0.3 scale in front of this rank label. So if we move this label 0.3 in front, this should move 0.3 distance from here to here, which is why we're putting 0.3 as the position in the x-axis for the player name heading. All right, so after putting it in the right position, we simply want to put text, and we're going to put the text as player right over here. I'm going to scale this text, and also I'm going to change the background transparency to 0.5, and I'm going to change the background color to something like blue. And I'm also going to keep the font as bold. So yeah, and now the next label we want to create is going to be the wins. This is the next label that we want to create. So here in this heading frame, we're going to add another text label right over here. And we're simply going to put text scaled equals true. And we're also going to change the size to, okay, so in the x-axis. All right, so now for the rank, it is 0.3 in the x-axis. For the player, it's 0.4 in the x-axis. So if we add both of them, we get 0.7, which means the remaining distance is 0.3. And in order for this label to fit correctly at this place, we want the size to be 0.3 in the x-axis, which is why we're going to be putting 0.3 comma 0 comma 1 comma 0. And this is the exact right size. And now here we're going to change the position of this text label as well. And here we're going to put the x-axis as 0.7 because the total distance total length of these two labels is 0.7, which is why we're going to be putting 0.7 in the x-axis. And as you can see, the label is being correctly positioned in the last part. And now we're gonna rename this text label to wins heading. Oh my god, wins heading. And I'm gonna change the text of this label to wins. I'm also gonna put this in bold, and I'm also gonna put the background transparency as 0.5. All right, so now we have created our heading parts. All right, guys, so now after creating our heading parts, now what we'll be doing is we're going to be creating a scrolling frame all the way to this part. Like this part, we're going to be creating a scrolling frame by simply going to the Surface UI. And here, we're going to be clicking on the plus icon. And if you search for scrolling frame, and you should see that a scrolling frame is being appeared over here. So now I'm going to rename this to leaderboard scrolling frame. And I'm going to go back to size. And here, initially we put the height of this frame to 0.1. So remaining height is going to be 0.9. So over here, if we go to the heading frame, as you can see, the size of the y-axis is 0.1 and the remaining part is 0.9, which is why you'll be going to the leaderboard scrolling frame, and essentially we'll be changing the size of the leaderboard scrolling frame to 0.9. In the y-axis and x-axis, it's going to be 1. And also what we're doing is we're going to oh wait, I forgot to change the offset. So it's 1, 0, 0.9, 0. Okay, so now after changing the size of the scrolling frame, we're gonna also change the position because we don't want the scrolling frame to be at the top right corner. We want this to go a little bit lower. So which means that we gotta change the position. And if I come over here and in the y-axis, I'm gonna change the position to 0.1 so that it goes right beneath the heading part. So now after creating our scrolling frame, here is where we'll be adding all the a bunch of player frames that basically show you who got the most wins. Okay, so in the scrolling frame, I'm going to change the transparency to 1. And also inside of this leaderboard scrolling frame, I'm going to be adding a UI list layout. As you can see, it's called UI list layout, and you essentially want to be adding this specific item. And what this does, it helps you sort out all the frames or text labels inside a frame. In other words, it helps you arrange all the frames or text labels in a list order. Let me show you guys what that exactly means. Okay, so inside of the leaderboard scrolling frame, I'm going to be adding another frame. I'm going to rename this frame to player data frame. And this is going to hold all the player data, which is the rank, the player, and the wins. I'm going to resize this exact same frame to, okay, so in the x-axis, it's going to be 1, and the y, maybe it's going to be 0.2 perhaps. Okay, that's actually too big. Okay, so here the scaling system, you don't really scale this frame with respect to this part. You're basically scaling this with respect to the scrolling frame because the scrolling frame is actually quite big, as you can see, which is why you want to put a much smaller number. Maybe like 0.1. Nope, it's still too big. Okay, so you want to put the offset to 0 as well if you don't want the frame to go out of the part. Okay, so yeah, I guess this is still a bit too big, maybe 0.05. I think that's a little bit too small, maybe 0.0. Okay, now let's just put it at 5. All right, so yeah, this is gonna be our player data frame. And inside of this player data frame, we're gonna be adding three more text labels, just like we did for the heading label. So now if we go to data label frame, I'm gonna add a text label. I'm gonna change the size to 0.3, just like the exact same size. The size should be as a exactly as the heading size, because if it's not, then the labels in the frame won't really overlap well with the heading, which is why we want to put the exact same size, which is 0.3 comma 0 comma 1 comma 0, and it's going to be the exact same size right over here. I'm going to rename this text label to player data uh, sorry player rank. I'm going to rename this to player rank, and I'm going to put scaled to true. And I'm also going to change the text to, I want to put some text. It doesn't have to be, just to show how this is going to look like. So I'm just going to put maybe #1. And I mean, this is just showing you guys how it's going to look if I put this specific text. And now into the frame, I'm going to add another text label. Then this is going to be the player name. I'm going to change the size to 0.4. Okay, so in the x-axis 0.4, and the y-axis is going to be 1. And if I put it like that, and I'm also going to change the position to 0.4 in the x-axis, just like that. Okay, it's actually 0.3, not 0.4, because the rank label is exactly 0.3. So I'm going to put the position as 0.3 as well. And I'm going to put the text scaled as true. And I'm also going to change the text to, maybe I'll put my name, I guess, which is going to be alt tantrums, just to show you guys how this frame is going to look like. I'm simply putting some sample text. And in this frame, we're also going to be adding the wins. So I'm going to put another text label, and we'll rename this as wins. And I'm also going to put text scaled as true over here. I'm going to change the size to, okay, so the x-axis is going to be 0.3 comma 0 comma 1 comma 0. And I'm also going to change the position of this frame all the way to 0.7. It's 0.7 in the x-axis. And that's how this whole thing is going to look. And I want to change the text to maybe 1,000 mins amount. And yeah, so this is how our player data frame is gonna look like. So now, okay, so I'm gonna duplicate this and show you guys how this is gonna look like. So if you duplicate this, as you can see, that the frames are going in a downward manner. And yeah, this is how exactly leaderboards look like, right? So the frames, like every time a player gets displayed at the leaderboard, the frames usually get displayed downwards, just like over here. However, there is one small issue. Like, it doesn't really look that good, to be honest. Like, if you compare the previous leaderboard and this leaderboard does not look that good at all. So we're going to try to change the look of this leaderboard by simply, okay, so here the main issue is that there's not really much space at the top, right? So at the top, there's not really much space. So in order to fix the issue, what I could be doing is I could go over here and add a UI, an item called UI padding. And there's an item called UI padding. What this does, it basically allows you to leave some space in the corners of the text label. So now if I go to the UI padding, and essentially I want to pad at the top over here, maybe the top or the left, you can pad wherever you want. So here, I guess I'll put the left. So the left, it's going to be in the x-axis. So in the x-axis, you want it to be something like 0.01 maybe. So if you do that, you will be able to see some space over here. And also in the padding top, you could change the space to maybe something like 0.01 over here. as well in the, okay, so this one is actually the y-axis because it's at the top, right? So you want to put it at something like 0.01. Oh, okay, zero. Okay, so this is actually offset, guys. My bad. This is actually not axis. This is scale, and this is offset. So in the scale, I'm gonna put it something like 0.01. And as you can see, there is some space being shown over here. You could tweak these values however you want, depending upon how your leaderboards look like. So, but here I'm just gonna put it like, oh, okay, let me put it 0.005. And yeah, I guess this doesn't look so bad. And also one more thing, like I think it'd be nice if there was some space between each frame. So I'm gonna come to UI list layout, right? So over here, as you can see, there's a property called padding in UI list layout. So essentially over here, I'm gonna change the padding to something like 0.01. Okay, that is already a bit too high. Maybe something like 0.05. And yeah, I guess this already looks much better. And this is the exact pattern that I'm going to be having. And also, guys, one more thing. I don't think this scroll bar looks nice. It kind of looks a bit ugly. So I want to come over here to the leaderboard scrolling frame. I'm going to search for scroll. Okay, so I'm going to come here and go to canvas. I think it's transparent canvas transparency. Okay, scroll bar image transparency. So in this property, right, we want to change it to 1. And if you do that, you won't really be able to see the scrolling frame right over here. And yeah, it's pretty much how this listing is going to look like. Okay, guys, one more thing you could be doing is that, as you can see, there's a space over here, and that's because there is a scrolling bar at this part. And we don't really want we don't really want this extra space because it kind of looks a bit asymmetrical, which is why we're going to come and change that by simply going to the leaderboard scrolling frame. And if you type SCR, and if you come over and see that there's a property called scroll bar thickness. So if you reduce that all the way up to 0, you won't really be able to see that space over here. However, we still want some space over here. So what you can do is you could go to UI padding, and here you could change the padding right to exactly 0.01, the same as the left. And yeah, now it looks pretty good. Like there's not really much asymmetry, and the leaderboard overall looks pretty good. And also now, okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we only want to be able to list the top 15 wins. So these frames have to fit only for 15 frames. So only 15 frames should be able to fit over here. We don't really want to have that extra space over underneath. So which is why we're going to resize these frames depending. Okay, so that after 15 frames, these frames won't really there won't really be any extra space after adding 15 frames. So how do we do that is that, okay, so I'm going to delete all of these additional frames over here, and I'm gonna actually resize the canvas. Okay, so over here, if you come over here, go to the leaderboard scrolling frame and search for a property called canvas size. As you can see, it's in the y-axis, it's 2 comma 0. So here, instead, maybe we could put it like 1.5 comma 0 to make the canvas a bit smaller. But as you decrease the size of the canvas, the label size also decreases. So you want to change the label size as well. So if I go to the player data frame and change the size, I could maybe change it like 0.07. And now let's say I'm duplicating this frame 15 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, my bad. And now if I try scrolling all the way down, like there is actually kind of overlapping. So I guess the size of the canvas is a bit too small, which is why what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually increase the size of the canvas. Maybe something like, okay, so let me go to canvas size and maybe put it like 1.7 and maybe change the size, decrease the size a bit. And this is where testing usually plays a major role. Like in your leaderboard, it's usually best to test around sizes like this in order to get the perfect size. So over here, maybe I'll put 0.5. Oh, okay, on 0.05. That's a bit too small. Okay, so now after that, if I duplicate this frame 15 times, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and if I scroll, oh god, now if I scroll down, as you can see, there is a little bit of space, but yeah, it's mostly pretty good. And right now it's mostly actually pretty good at all the 15 frames are fitting pretty well, and this is the exact same size that you would initially be wanting in your leaderboard if you have only 15 wins. But however, if your leaderboard has more than that, like maybe 50, 50, or 10 wins, then you want to resize the canvas and the size of the player data frame accordingly to your preferences. Alright guys, after creating this leaderboard, what we're doing is we're going to be adding some final touches to this specific leaderboard. So here, I guess I'll just add a part. I want to anchor this part. I want to actually try to add some finishing touches to this leaderboard. And yeah, I guess this is how leaderboard goes. I hope this leaderboard goes fairly good. And yeah, this is how the UI in the leaderboard is actually usually made. This is how I usually make my leaderboard UI. And yeah, I hope it looks pretty good. Alright guys, so after creating this leaderboard, what we're doing is we're going to be creating these podiums like the one in this leaderboard. So here I'm simply going to add a cylinder by clicking down this drop down arrow, and there is an option called cylinder, and if you click it, you should be seeing a cylinder. I'm just going to resize this to 6 studs on both ends. And I'm also gonna move it right next to the leaderboard. And I'm also gonna duplicate these podiums like that. I'm gonna get this podium. I'm gonna resize this. This is gonna be the first place podium. And this is gonna be the third place podium. And this is gonna be the second place podium. So here I could essentially change the brick colors to maybe something like a little bit like a gray, I guess. Yeah, a gray. And here I'm gonna put it like a brown. No, this one looks kind of bad. Yeah, this is looks pretty good. And here I'm gonna put it as a yellow, maybe like gold. Yeah, this one looks a bit better. And now here I'm gonna add, okay, I'm gonna anchor these parts as well. And after that, I'm going to be adding a normal cuboid part over here. And here I could also be adding a surface. Okay, before that, let me just rename these podiums to something like second podium. And here I'm going to rename this podium to first podium. Okay, what am I doing? The spelling is actually wrong. Yeah, second podium. And here, let me rename this to first podium. And over here, I'm going to rename this to third podium. Oh, yeah. And here inside of the first podium, I'm going to be adding this part. I'm going to put this part under the first podium. And here inside this, let me just rename this to rank parts. And inside this rank part, I'm going to be adding a surface GUI And inside of the surface UI, I'm going to be adding a text label. And here you can see the text label right over here. So I'm simply going to rotate this so that it appears at the front. I'm going to move this all the way that attaches to the first podium. Let me resize this. And here I'm going to change the size of this text label to 1, 0, 1, 0. And if I hit enter, and here I'm going to put scaled as true, and I want to change the text uh, to something like #1, just like I did in these three podiums. And I'm also going to put the font as in bold. And I'm also going to add a UI corner. Okay, before that, let me change the background transparency to 1. And I'm also gonna add a UI corner by clicking the plus icon. And if I search for UI, so not UI corner, UI stroke, and now you can't really see the stroke because it's in black. But now if I change the text color of the text label to something like yellow or maybe, okay, gold, and you should be seeing the gold look. And I'm also going to change the thickness of this UI stroke to a higher value, like maybe, yeah, something like that. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And I could also, like, let me resize this a bit. And yeah, so now I'm going to change the brick color of this podium, sorry, rank part to something like a yellow. And yeah, this is how your podium is going to look like. So now I want to duplicate this rank bar and put it in the second podium right over here. And let me just put it over here. Okay, let me put this at 0.25 studs and move this so that the part moves only 0.25 studs. And I want to change the brick color to something a bit different than the same color. So maybe we'll make this a bit more bright. Yeah, this looks pretty good. And let me just put it in the center. And I want to change the text of this specific rank part to #2. And I want to change the text color to something like maybe black. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. Okay, let me change the size. And yeah, I guess this size looks pretty good. And now I'm going to duplicate this same rank part and I'm going to put this in the third podium. And I'm going to rename, okay, let me put it in the right space, the right area. And let me decrease the size even more, something like that, I guess. You could put arrange these podiums however you want. I'm just simply gonna put it like this. And here in the brick color, you could change it to maybe a darker brown like this. And I'm going to change the text of this. Let me go up here, change the text to #3. And I can also change the text color to something like brown, something dark brown, maybe like that. And yeah, okay, so after creating your podiums, you're gonna also create your rigs. They're gonna put the rigs over there as well. So essentially what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna go to the first podium, click on the plus. Okay, so here we're gonna go to the model, no, avatar tab, and here you can see a button called character. So I want to click on this character, and there are two rig types. In my game, there's actually, I mean, my game actually contains R6, but depending upon your game, you can put either R6 or R15. But here I'm simply going to put R6 because, yeah, I mean, you could put R15 if you want, it depends on your game, but I want to put R6 over here. And here I'm gonna put block avatar, yeah, block avatar. And if you put that, you should be seeing a rig of your own. So now I'm just gonna put this rig over here. And okay, let me put this rig inside of the second podium. Maybe where is it? Yeah, it's right over here. Let me put it over here. And I'm gonna put control to this rig and put this rig on the first podium. So let me just move this over here. And the reason why we're creating these rigs is because we'll actually be using players' user IDs to get the humanoid description of the player. In other words, you'll be getting the player's hair, the player's shirt, the player's pen, and etc. And you'll be putting all of that description on these rigs. So that's pretty much the reason why we are actually creating these rigs. And now I'm just gonna control this rig. I'm gonna put it in the third podium. I'm gonna put this right over here. And yeah, it's pretty much the reason why we're creating these rigs. There's actually a special function where it allows yourself, it allows you to get the human's description from the player's ID. And that function, unlike the player shirt and all, etc., which is why we're creating these rigs. And last but not least, what we're doing is we're going to get every single one of these parts, and we're gonna actually put Control G to make it a model, and we're gonna rename this model to something like leader wins leader board model. And yeah, it's pretty much how you build your own first leaderboard. And also one more thing, you could change the color. The colors don't look that great, but I guess I'll be changing these colors later in the next video, in the part 2 video. So yeah, I mean, that is how this whole leaderboard model is made. Alright guys, thank you so much guys for watching the part 1 video. Well, honestly, I really wanted to finish this video including the scripting part, but unfortunately, this video is getting pretty long, which is why I decided to stop this video over here and do the part 2 a bit later. Oh, my bad, I actually forgot to anchor these parts. I don't know why, but Roblox should really make parts anchor by default, but fortunately, that's not really the case. And it's not really that easy to remember anchoring the parts correctly. And yeah, in the part 2 video, I'll be teaching you guys how order data stores work and how data stores work in general. And yeah, that's what my next video is going to be about. Thank you so much guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next part 2 scripting video.